Hello everyone, I'm Justin Hurst, and today I'll be joined by Ryan Hafen and Tim Lee as we talk about entity relationship diagrams, otherwise known as ER diagrams. We'll be going over what an entity relationship diagram is, and we'll demonstrate how to use it. Then we'll go over some of the advantages and disadvantages of entity relationship diagrams. Finally, we'll give you our recommendations around when and how to use ER diagrams.
An entity relationship diagram is a type of workflow that illustrates how entities such as people, objects, and concepts relate to each other within a system. ER diagrams are most often used to design and debug relational databases within the fields of software engineering, business information systems, educational research. Also known as ERDs or ER models, they use a defined set of symbols such as rectangles, diamonds, ovals, and connecting lines to depict the interconnectedness of entities, relationships, and their attributes. They mirror grammatical structures with entities as nouns and relationships as verbs. Peter Chen is credited with developing the ER model in the 70s. The two main objects of the ER diagram are entities and attributes. Entities are represented by means of rectangles. Rectangles are named with the entity set they represent. Attributes are properties of entities. Attributes are represented by means of ellipses. Every ellipse represents one attribute and is directly connected to its entity, the rectangle. Attributes can be multi-valued. For example, a student has a landline and a cell phone. Derived attributes are calculated. For example, a person's age is calculated by subtracting their birth date from today's date. The next major component of the ER diagram is the relationships, of which there are 4 types. The first one is a one-to-one. When only one instance of an entity is associated with the relationship, it is marked as a one-to-one. The second is one-to-many. When more than one instance of an entity is associated with a relationship, it is marked as 1-to-n. The third is many-to-one. When more than one instance of an entity is associated with the relationship, it is marked as n-to-one. And the final is many-to-many. The following image reflects that more than one instance of the entity on the left and more than one instance of the entity on the right can be associated with the relationship. It depicts a many-to-many.
When considering the entity relationship diagram in connection with our stockpile application, we could consider the relationship between the list and the items in the list. We start on the left-hand side with the list entity in the square. It has an attribute called name, which in our app could be pantry or grocery. The list entity forms a one-to-many relationship with the items on the right-hand side using a has relationship. This is designated using a number 1 over the line between the list entity and the has relationship, and then an n over the line between the has relationship and the items entity. The items entity then has many attributes such as name, description, quantity, price, and unit of measure. As you can see, the relationship diagram is a very effective and simple way to communicate the entities, relationships, and attributes found in our stockpile application.
The entity relationship diagram is a great starting point because it's simple to understand. As long as you have entities and relationships between them, you can model it with the ER diagram. You don't need a deep technical understanding of your dataset to draw it out. If you can pick out the nouns, or the entities, and the verbs, or the relationships, then you already have the skeleton. The ER diagram is perfect for relational databases. It has a very straightforward relational representation. This shouldn't be surprising. It was created with relational databases in mind. If you're starting with the ER diagram to define the entities and your relationships, then you can quickly transition into a database. The entities are the tables, the attributes are the rows, and the relationships are the foreign keys and references. On the other hand, if you started with a database, it's even easier to draw the ER diagram. In fact, some databases can do it automatically for you. Another advantage is that the ER diagram is a visual chart. It's more accessible than a description, and the user does not have to understand SQL language. It offers a different way of conceptualizing the data. The advantages I've listed all relate to how simple and accessible the ER diagram is. Now, these same things lead to its disadvantages. First, there is no industry standard for notation styles. Some people would use the crow's feet arrows, and some people use normal text to represent cardinality. This is because of the large size of the audience who use the ER diagram. We might be used to arrows with filled triangles, while someone else prefers set notation. An ER diagram that is well formed to your organization might not translate so well to a different style. Second, the ER diagram is too high level for object-oriented programming. We could say that each entity type is a class, and each entity is then an instance of that class, and the relationships can represent the is a and has a links, but it really starts to break down from there. Because, well, how is data passed in between them? And who has permission to change this attribute? When we start getting into that level of detail, we should consider other types of diagrams.
Our recommendations for the ER diagram are to show the level of detail necessary for the purpose. You might want to draw a concept, logical, or physical model depending on the details needed. Watch for redundant entities and relationships. If there's troubleshooting of a database problem, watch for holes in relationships and missing entities or attributes. Make sure all your entities and relationships are labeled. Make sure the ER diagram supports all the data you need to store.
In conclusion, entity relationship diagrams can be a powerful tool that should be strongly considered for any software project. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.